Hey everyone, it's Mr. Miles. I'm going to give you a quick video explaining the Edgar Allan Poe HyperDoc so you know what to do, what my expectations are for the project, because this will basically take you the most of the week to complete if you do it right. And this is kind of give you the overview of what to do for each individual step of the process. Okay, so what you have, this is not something that is on your romantic chart. Okay, you've got The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, but we're not going to read that until we get back from spring break. I do want you to experience an Edgar Allan Poe short story and do a bit of a literary analysis on it. But because Edgar Allan Poe was so prolific and he wrote so many short stories, there are so many good options to pick from. Um, Typically, what we would do is we would do The Fall of the House of Usher. That's a longer story. And the thing about Poe is that Poe does love his big $5 words, and he likes to use them a lot. And so it'd be a little more difficult to teach a story like that remotely than just doing this, which is me using three of Edgar Allan Poe's shorter stories and then letting you pick one, okay, to do the project on. All right. So the goal of this hyperdoc is for you to experience an Edgar Allan Poe short story, analyze it, and be able to interpret it in terms of how Poe achieves his singular effect. What kind of mood does he evoke from the story? What are the major themes and thematic considerations in the story? And kind of go from there to synthesize and make a big project out of it. Okay. So, step one is you got to pick a story to read. So, I've got three stories here: The Cask of Amontillado, Mask of the Red Death, and The Telltale Heart. Okay. So out of these three stories, the shortest one is probably Mask of the Red Death. Does not mean that it is easy, because it's probably the most allegorical. In other words, the most symbolic out of the three stories. So if you pick Mask of the Red Death because it's the shortest one, you might be in for a rude awakening because of the symbolism is so heavy in that story. But essentially, so I can give you the rundown of what each story, the kind of premise for each story is before you read, so you can kind of help pick one that suits your interest. The Telltale Heart is about a guy who sleeps basically in an apartment building with another guy, and next door, this guy has a giant deformed eyeball. And so the main character decides, I'm going to kill him because I hate his giant deformed eyeball. And that's the story. The Mask of the Red Death is about a mask, MASQUE, which is like a giant ball where everybody would wear a mask. Go figure. And basically, they're having this giant mask, this ball, while there is a plague called the Red Death happening around them in the city. And it's about what happens when someone brings that plague into that masquerade, that ball. And then the last one is the Cask of Amontillado, which is Amontillado is a type of wine. It's a very like high class wine, and it takes place in Italy. They are having a party, and this guy takes a friend of his, a former friend of his, down to a wine cellar on the intention of going to get more wine, but he's actually planning to kill him in revenge for something that he's done to him. So, Cask of Amontillado is a story about revenge. Mask of the Red Death is a story about death catching up to you. And then The Telltale Heart is a story about madness more than anything else. Because, I mean, obviously the guy who is wanting to kill his neighbor for having a big eyeball, he's not mentally fit. You can imagine. So that's essentially kind of the gist of those three stories. So pick one that suits your fancy. They're all essentially the same length and level of complexity. So it's not like one is going to be noticeably quicker or easier to read than the other. You're going to have to break them down and analyze them in detail no matter what. But hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea about what to pick. Once you pick it, you can click the link. It'll take you to a digital version. And the thing is to know about Edgar Allan Poe is that he has a very, very, very large vocabulary. I think I read somewhere where someone said he had like a 50,000 word vocabulary. He's got a lot of big words in his back pocket. So you might not understand certain words that he uses. That's okay. Use Google, look them up. That's perfectly acceptable. I still have to do that, and I'm an English teacher. Edgar Allan Poe has a very large vocabulary, but don't be intimidated by it because, again, just look it up if you don't know the word. And in terms of the actual reading level of his stories, these are all fairly easy to comprehend. Okay, you might not get every little reference or allusion that he makes, but that's okay. That's just Edgar Allan Poe. So try to get the gist of it is the main thing, and look for the effect. If it helps, I posted links to all the audiobook or audio versions of these stories that you can listen to while you read. Okay, and I would honestly recommend that, follow along with the audio version as you read. Once you read them, okay, you're going to answer these two literary analysis questions. Okay, so the first one, citing at least two pieces of text evidence, properly formatted. So in other words, citing it. Okay. Now, citing these stories is going to be a fascinating proposition because there are no page numbers. However, I still want you to have some kind of in-text citation. So if you want to just put Poe in parentheses, that's fine. Okay. There's no page number that you can give me, so that's fine. But quote it, cite it, and tell me, how does this story that you picked create a single effect? Oh my gosh, in regards to its mood. So how does Poe evoke a mood in his reader, and what steps does he take to achieve it? So the diction, the word choice, the dialogue, if there's dialogue in the story, like what do the characters say that's maybe foreboding or suspenseful, the descriptions that he uses, the narration style, like any of that stuff's fair game. Okay, so tell me how he evokes a mood in the reader. Okay, um, analyze, take a theme in one of these stories. So death is always going to come for you, revenge, dread, fear of the unknown, any of that stuff, and analyze how Poe explores those ideas in his story. Okay, again, cite two pieces of text evidence and analyze them. Step 3, the last step, this is going to take you the most time to complete. You are going to pick one of these 3 projects, and you are going to essentially take your story that you picked and make a project out of it. So you got 3 choices that you can do. Option 1, you can turn it into a comic strip or a graphic novel. And I've actually got some examples I can show you of this. So here is an example of somebody who did Cask of Amontillado as a comic strip. Okay. So you can kind of see what's going on there. I think I have another Cask of Amontillado comic strip. So this one. Okay. So again, it doesn't have to have a ton of panels in it. It can just be kind of the main scenes in the story. Okay. But you're just going to recreate the story, make sure it's colorful, make sure it has color, please. Don't just do black and white stick figures and that's it, because it looks like you did it 5 minutes before class. And then incorporate real quotes from the text in the little word bubbles that your characters say. So that's option 1. And again, I'm not grading on artistic ability, just do you show effort and neatness in the project. I'm going to skip option 2 for now. Let's go to option 3 and we'll come back to option 2. So option 3, you create a newspaper that reflects the setting, plot, characters of your story. So think like a newspaper article. It can be a Craigslist ad, for help wanted. We need a mason to, brick up this wall. I heard that Montresor was pretty good at bricklaying or something like that. Or create a missing person poster for Fortunato or something like that, right? And you can use Canva to make it if you want, or you can just use a Google Doc if you want to try to create it on a Google Doc as well. But some kind of newspaper clipping, newspaper article. And again, it can be, any kind of newspaper article. An obituary, that might make sense. An obituary be good. So you can have kind of flexibility with that one as well. Let's talk about option two. So option two is a video. Okay. You will turn in a written script. I do need a written component, and the written component needs to be, probably about 400 words, maybe 300, 400 words. So that'll probably take you to about, 3, 4, 5 minute video. It doesn't have to be a super long video. These stories themselves are not probably going to take very long videos to recreate, but essentially you recreate the story in video format using modern day language, modern day setting. Okay. And you can just kind of be creative with how you adapt it in the video. So if you want to take, the cask of Amontillado, and instead of going down to a wine cellar, they're going down to the cafeteria to pick up Crispitos or something. Like you can do that. If you, instead of the Mask of the Red Death, instead of the ball, if you want to like make it prom or something. So you can kind of have flexibility with that in terms of your video, in terms of what you want to do. The video can be recorded however you want to record it. If you want to record it on your phone, you can record it on your phone. Most people wind up doing that. If you want to do it with Flipgrid, I'll post a link to Flipgrid. You don't have to. It's just a tool where you can use your webcam on your Chromebook to record it. That can be a nice, useful tool if you want to do it more kind of looking at the camera kind of way. But be as creative as you want with it. I'm not going to kind of try to limit your creativity. So try to do as much as you want with the video piece of it. Just make sure that you turn in a written script with it. Here's the rubric for your project. The writing component's 30 points. Every single project, no matter which one you pick, has a writing component. Okay. Not to mention, you've also got the text analysis questions on step 2. So all that's important. Okay. Everybody does it. Then you've got the visual component, which is 30 points. And then you've got the accuracy. Does it accurately reflect what's going on in the story? Or does it look like you had no clue what was happening? Okay. And obviously that's going to be more points than anything else. So that's the Poe HyperDoc project. If anything that I just went over doesn't make sense, or if maybe you're still kind of lost on a certain element of this project, please reach out to me, shoot me a reminder. I'll be happy to answer it. It is due Friday. You read the Poe story. You can start reading the Poe story Tuesday. So you've got essentially all week to do it. So the projects themselves, you should be able to knock them all out. You should be able to finish them all. So that's the Poe HyperDoc. And if you got any questions, let me know.